How are we doing, YouTube? It's your friendly gamer SmartEntity here. Today we're going to talk about the Mara Detron. Now the Mara Detron is a complete upgrade from the normal Detron, and the difference between the two weapons is the Mara Detron do have an increase in magazine capacity from 5 to 8, and it has an increase in firing rate from 3.3 to 4.2. Now, when this weapon first came out with the Void Trader, I was actually a bit surprised because the Detron, of course, was a potential event weapon, and then it became a secret boss weapon with the secret boss, the Nuka, that shows up from invasion mission marks. Now, this surprised me because I always figure something like the Detron would already be a sort of final version, so I pretty much invested potato 5 formats into it. And then when the Mara Detron came out, I was a bit annoyed because, well, that means all that potato and form is wasted. But I am quite happy in that we get a much stronger weapon now. So as for the build, this is a short-range weapon, so we are going to use Magnum Force in there. So it's Hornet Strike Barrel Fusion Lethal Torrent, Magnum Force for additional base damage. The decrease in accuracy is really not that big a deal because this is a shotgun type weapon, a hand cannon as they used to call it. So what it means is it does have damage fall off over time, it does have pellets, and the pellets do spread anyway. So it's meant for short range, so Magnum Force is justified. In addition, we're going to use Pathogen Rounds and Convulsion for corrosive, Heated Charge for 90% extra hit damage, and Jolt to add to that corrosive, and of course, as usual, this is a tower build. Now, this is quite an interesting weapon in that it is significantly better than the original Detron, and we're going to use Warframe Builder to show that. So I have the normal Detron here, and we have the same build, and we have the Mara Detron over here, again with the same build. Now notice with the normal Detron and the Mara Detron, the same total damage of 4940.83, no surprise there. It's this burst DPS and the sustained DPS that really shines for the Mara Detron. So for burst DPS is 26,000 for the normal, and for sustained DPS is about 12,700. For the Mara, we're looking at 33,000 for burst and 18,000 for sustained DPS. And this, of course, is largely due to the increase in magazine capacity. The fire rate increase obviously helps as well, but the magazine capacity is the component that I found to be very useful in-game. Now I can say from leveling the Detron 6 times to rank 30, this weapon really benefited from a mod such as Ice Storm. The increase in ammo capacity really helped a lot, so you can definitely take out Jolt and put an Ice Storm in there. But for the Mara Detron, I actually found it's actually not that necessary because with the 8 base magazine capacity, it's actually more than enough to deal with all situations. But having said that, if you are using this weapon in very low level, i.e. you're gonna one-shot enemies anyway, it's perfectly fine to take out Jolt and put in the Ice Storm. In fact, it's okay to take out Magnum Force and put in Ice Storm because you're gonna one-shot them anyway. So as usual, we're going to jump into some T3 Exterminate here to show off some gameplay. Now, I do have to say, the Detron, when it came out, it was a mid-tier weapon, and it still is, just because the Brak was so much better, and it was supposed to be on the same tier as the Brak, but it really isn't. The Mara Detron, these days, again, is a mid-tier weapon, just because of all the newly released Syndicate weapons. So as you can see, the damage output is pretty decent. Now with this kind of weapon, you can rapid fire, the fire rate is really nice, and the reload time is quite generous as well. Now we'll have a look at the spread of the weapon. So we're gonna look at, we'll use this little decoration over here, assuming that things goes down. So we're, okay, I'll back off a bit. So we're at 20 meters from this decoration over here. Just have a look at the spread of this weapon. Now to be fair, I do have Magnum Force on there, which really isn't helping. But even without Magnum Force, it's just not really practical to use this weapon beyond 20 meters. But of course, if you are only within 5 meters, it's actually quite decent. It does spread, but when you have got an enemy there, 80% of your pellets should hit, if not more. So it's definitely viable. But one thing to note is this is a rapid firing weapon. It's semi-automatic, but it's rapid firing, and the recoil is quite large as well. So again, you really need to be in close range with the enemy to utilize this rapid firing rate. As far as ammo economy goes, this really isn't the most ammo economic weapon, and given that it's mid-tier, it's not really that strong. And with the ammo economy, it's really not the weapon I want to use for a 40-minute plus T4 survival or a 35-wave plus T4 defense. As far as dispersing enemies go, I mean, I'm not going to be too concerned about the actual absolute value of damage it does, but as far as, you know, dispersing these level 3-ish enemies, it does do a fast enough job, such that, you know, it's an okay weapon to use for all solar map type missions. Now, see this bombard over here, one thing I do want to mention is, when I was leveling this weapon with a couple guys, one person actually asked me, you know, the Mara Detron does have that base radiation damage, which means you can combine it with corrosive and heat to do radiation, corrosive, and heat. Now, the reason he thought that was significant was because the bombards are alloy type, which take extra damage from radiation, and obviously heavy gunners take extra damage from corrosive. And he asked me if the Mara Detron, because of its innate radiation, makes it a top tier weapon for high level survival. Now, the simple answer I gave to him was no, it isn't, because if you're doing high level, everyone should be using corrosive projection anyway, i.e. you'll be having enemies that have no armor anyway. And when you are doing that, you want to use Varo and radiation. So, you know, the radiation from Mara Detron Thrower is good if you are in a random squad, but for high level gameplay it doesn't really matter anyway, because again, your corrosive projection from OPPO players would destroy all armor at baseline, and you'll be forced to use the Varo radiation combo on your elementals. So there we go, it does disperse enemies quite fast, it's okay for solo map missions, it's mid-tier in that, you know, it's fine to put a potato on, but I definitely wouldn't prioritize putting formers on this weapon until you've got all your top tier guys down. First, so things like your Syndicate Murloc, your Vapor Murloc, your Sign or Gamma Core, those are definitely priority weapons to put on those 5 or 6 formers, depending on how you like to mod your weapons. Alright, so let's put this weapon into perspective, the Mara Detron. Now for low level speed kills, I give it a 4. I mean, okay, let me justify that. So if we're talking about really low level, so under level 15 for basic enemies, under level 10 for non-basic enemies, you know, the pellet spreading actually do help. But anything above level 10 for things like heavy gunners, or anything above level 15 in general, the spreading of bullets is not gonna, you know, eliminate enemies fast. But that aside, and when I say, you know, eliminate enemy fast, I mean if you do one shot, because of the pellet spreading, you can actually kill multiple enemies. Okay, so that aside, this weapon really isn't that great at low level speed kill. I mean, it has a magazine size of 8. Yes, its reload speed is quite fast, but there's just so many better weapons to do low level speed kills with. As far as high level utility, it is a lot better than most of the weapons in the game right now, but it is still mid-tier in that, again, you know, if you look at things like the Sign or Gamma Core, which is also a short-range weapon, it's much stronger at high-level gameplay. And of course, we got the Vapor Murloc, which is another top-tier weapon that is really the type of weapon you want to use for your high-level gameplay. So I'll give it a 6 because yes, it's strong, but it's just not, you know, top-tier. It's just not up there. As far as AoE potential, I mean, it doesn't really have much AoE potential, but again, you do have pellet spreading, so you may be able to hit a couple enemies at a time, you may kill a couple enemies at a time, but that's only really relevant in low-level gameplay. Now, as subjective factors go, I have to say I am trying to be as unbiased as I can, but I can't really help it, and the reason is because recently I've been leveling a lot of Syndicate weapons, and all of them obviously have the innate Syndicate power, discharging 1000 damage AoE when the gauge fills up, and of course giving you bonuses here and there. The Mara Detron doesn't have any of that, and I kind of feel because of that the Mara Detron is just not really up there right now, so I give it a subjective factor of 4. So total 4.25. Now if we remember with my scaling, if a weapon is between 4 to 6 is reasonable, so I definitely do not regret putting a potato in, and I definitely do not regret putting 6 formers in. But again, I wouldn't make it a priority. You know, former your Sign or Gamma Core, former your Void Core Murloc first, and once everything else is done, it's perfectly fine to former this weapon a bit more, especially if you enjoy holding a video camera in your hand throughout missions. Alright guys, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.